I'm here today with Dr. Tori J, founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. Dr. Tori, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So you met your own father at age 31, and that had a big impact on your life. Can you tell me what happened?
So in meeting my father at 31, it really changed who I was as a person. And I know people are like, well, how is that at 31? I felt like I was successful, I had degrees, and I was doing very well in life. But there was something about meeting him that really changed my identity and the scope. There was a part of me that only knew one side of me and one half of me. And in meeting my father, it was just like it changed overnight. I remember the first day I met him after finding out he was my dad. And my father was blind by the time I met him. And he leans over to my bonus mother, as I call her now, and he says, "Does she look like me?" And she said, "Yes, she has your smile." And that was the first day, June, that I was identified with someone other than my mother growing up. Everyone was like, "You look just like your mother." But that moment, my identity was like solidified. And I had a place in life where I understood movements and who I was in this world.
Do you have a relationship with your father now?
Actually, my father passed 2.5 years into me knowing him, but I can tell you in that 2.5 years, he gave me something that I had been waiting for 31 years. Really, by the time he passed, I was 33, and there were things that, just conversations that we would have that helped speak to who I was that I didn't even know existed. Growing up, you think, I know this part of me and I know this side of me, but I didn't know that this actually came from someone else. And my dad, when I tell you he was spiritual, he was a minister, he was very much so a motivational speaker, and in my world, and a philanthropist, and in my world, that made who I am on that side make sense.
So
yeah.
Do you feel like you had traits from him even though you didn't know him?
There is a thing, being a chemist before this and loving biology, our DNA never lies to us. And when you look at studies, it literally says our DNA is more like our father's than our mother. When you look at DNA itself, our fathers pick the gender of the baby, right? We learned this in Biology 101.
Yeah.
But there are studies that show that when we have a recessive and mutated gene, but from our mother, our dads cover it and give us a very dominant gene. But when our fathers have a recessive and mutated gene, our mothers don't cover it. So we're more like our fathers than our mothers. And that was the part of me that I was longing to know more about. And he gave me that. He gave me an understanding of who I am. I can tell you the work that I do with the fatherless generation was actually unlocked when I met him.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So the fatherless generation actually reunites fatherless children with their biological fathers, and we provide resources and services to children who are growing up without their dads. And we've now currently reunited 3,250 fatherless children with their fathers across this country.
What effect does this have on the children?
It takes children out of a space of being suicidal. We have problems in this world, and we don't look at it this way, but fatherlessness is a huge social ill, and it's causing a social pandemic that we see around the world, everything from behavioral disorders. Fatherless children are 85% more likely to have a behavioral disorder. That's ADD, ADHD, ODD, and we talk about these things very casually, like it's a normal thing, but it's not a normal construct. It comes from children desiring to have fathers present, and when the children have their dads present, they calm down. They understand who they are. Suicidal thoughts are not prevalent as they were before. Children are actually being able to identify with who they are. Identity is huge when you're growing up as a youth. If you don't know who you are and you don't understand it, you go looking for it in the wrong places, right? So that's gangs. Those are the things that we see on the news every single night. And this is what's happening when you're reuniting fatherless children with their dads. What's happening is we're changing social construct. We're able to alleviate some of the crime rates in areas that they're like, oh my God, that's horrible, but we don't do anything about it. Fatherlessness and reuniting children with their fathers is actually doing something about it.
And so I know that fatherlessness is unfortunately especially prevalent in African American communities right now.
Yes.
And, do you think that by bringing fathers back into those communities, that could help those communities?
1,000%. I'm watching that happen. I just got back from the NBA All-Star Weekend in Chicago, and that was part of our conversation. I partnered with some amazing panelists to do a screening. And when you look at a lot of the children, even looking in Chicago, 99% of Cook County jail system are fatherless men. That's an issue. But if you're not talking about it, then they're not healing even when they're in that system. I'm a board member of the Department of Juvenile Justice in Georgia when it comes to task force management for kids who are dealing with incarceration rates. And one of the things we want to do is reduce recidivism. And now we've just instituted a pilot program where they will have fatherless talks, because group therapy is helping, and being able to talk about not having your father present is changing that. 75% of African Americans are growing up without their fathers even present, right? But their fathers are fighting to be present, they just don't know it. So when you don't think your father loves you, when you don't think your father is interested in being in your life, imagine how you're looking for love in all the wrong places. But I always say that every little boy needs his father to teach him how to be a man, and every little girl needs her father to teach her how to love and trust a man. That's why we see divorce rates super high, because everyone, when you look at it and you ask them questions, they didn't have their father either, June. And so when you don't have your father present and you're in a marriage, there are things that you just don't know to do. And so it's creating divorce rates that are just astronomical. The numbers are crazy. And it really goes back to your childhood.
So how does your organization work? How do you reunite?
I can't give all the tidbits away, but we take them through a process of, there's an intake, and we then take them through, if they need an attorney, it's holistic for me. They have therapy, because you can't reunite a child with a father who hasn't been absent without giving them some therapy.
You have the father or the child?
Both of them. Both of them. Because you've got to think about growing up, maybe you have some animosity, you've got some anger, right? We see angry little boys and girls turn into raging men and raging women. And I need to alleviate that. I need to give you an understanding, and I need to put you and your father in a safe space so that you both can get your stories out in a safe space. Because if a dad tries to tell the child, oh, your mother, that's going to be cut off like really quickly. They don't want to hear anything negative about their mothers. They want you to apologize, and then they want forgiveness to happen. And that's the key. It's divine forgiveness on every part. We have to walk in divine forgiveness. And when we're helping them through that process, then we have attorneys who are assisting along the way to get proper paperwork in order. I never go along with this thing of, it's a word and we're going to have an agreement. No, we want it legally binding, because dads are going to be legally bound to child support in some way. So we want them to have an actual structured order where they know when they're supposed to pick them up. And not only the fathers know, but the children know.
Yes.
They know when their dads are going to come pick them up. And so there's an excitement that takes place. There's a thing that's very exciting. And I can tell you, I just had someone call me earlier. A gentleman said, I need to talk to you because there's someone who wants to reunite with their father and they're 56 years old. And I have someone that I helped. She was 57 years old when we helped her reunite with her father, but it was different. He had already passed on. But we were able to do a siblingship test to prove that the father that she grew up with, that she kind of felt in her gut that wasn't her father, and he treated her horribly, and then she allowed men in her life to treat her like that father. She did a test with her brother, her brother who was from her mom's first marriage, and found out that was 100% her brother, and this man was not her father. And it has changed her life. As a 57-year-old woman, she told me, I move differently now that I know that that was my father and this man wasn't. That's the change that we get to make, not only for children, but for adults.
Wow, so you really work at all age levels. You work with very young families too?
Yeah, I help dads who have been, maybe they've been alienated for 4 or 5 months, but the child is still, maybe under 1. I've helped fathers who've been alienated for 14, 15 years and never has ever seen the child. I get to help with everyone, and it's a pleasure to do it. It can be stressful sometimes, June, because even reuniting with my father, I had to tell individuals, especially as adults, you may not know, it's exciting initially, but then when he's imperfect, you're going to have a moment. I will never forget the day I wrote my father a letter and said, hey, you're confusing my life a little bit. I need you to back away. And about a week later, I started calling him again. It's just, you're not used to it. And so I have to coach a lot of the adults through that process once they've reunited with their father, and get them a therapist on board or a life coach to help them navigate the emotions of having this imperfect human being. Because none of us are perfect, but for some reason we attach Superman to a dad, and he's perfect, right?
Well, he is. When you're little, your dad, he's strong, and he's.
And then we get upset and we don't want anything to do, and it's like, no, he's human and he deserves access to you. Because I will never forget something a friend of mine, Travis, said to me. He said, I need to be present in my children's lives so I can speak to the part of me that's in them, good and bad, right? There's things that a mother can't tell a child, about them, because it comes from the father. And the dad needs to be present for that. My father was present for that. My father was able to look into my life, even being blind. And it was September 17th, I'll never forget it, 2007. He called me and asked me to clear my schedule that Monday morning. And I thought, that's odd, but I did. And in clearing my schedule, he wanted to talk to me about the woman he saw me becoming, some of the mistakes I was making in life. He clearly had been watching June for 2.5 years. And he said, when you start doing these things, you're gonna have success in life. That was Monday. Wednesday, he went into a coma. Sunday, he died. And so I got that blessing and that word. And now I have a bonus mom who I just had breakfast with last week, who she is like the keeper of the prophecy. And so when she sees something or I tell her something, she'll say to me, your dad said you would do that. Your dad said you would do that. And it's so awesome to have that part in my journey. It is. It's fantastic to have that.
Well, it's true. You really cannot replace a father in someone's life.
No, you cannot. And especially within the African American community, we have to understand. I heard Benjamin Watson earlier, and he started it out by saying, family is the first construct of government. And I was like, absolutely. But when a father is missing, some stuff you just don't get. You don't get the emotional and the psychological and even some of the mental stuff that you need. And most of all, the spiritual things that you need. There's a lot of individuals who are struggling with faith because how can I believe in a God I can't see and call him Father when my Father that's here on earth wasn't present? That's a struggle that a lot of people are having and you don't know it. But if you watch the news and you talk to the youth, you'll learn that that's the issues that they're having.
Are you able to reunite fathers when there's been perhaps abuse or neglect situations? Or?
We do, but we're very cautious about it. There's, once again, therapy is involved, coaching. There's fatherhood programs that we get involved to help them navigate that scenario. And they have to do a lot of work. And we're always about supervised visitation. Some dads want to shun that, and I'm saying that's protection for you and for the children. I never want to put myself in a situation where we turn back later and go, oh my God, we caused harm to someone. We have an 87% success rate, and we have a 92% retention rate, but that's all about the intake. We get all of the information up front, and then we Google and we look. You say you lived in such and such area. We're going to look for criminal records. We're going to look for things. Dads don't know that. They're learning that right now. We're looking for certain things because maybe somebody's not being honest. And we've had to actually let go of some clients because they weren't truthful. And that domestic violence and that emotional, verbal abuse is very real and prevalent in their lives. And they think that they have an entitlement to children. And I can't be a part of that process.
Right.
But I can tell
you. They need to do some healing on
Yep.
their own
Absolutely.
first before they come to you.
And I'm all about the healing, right? I think you need to heal. There are too many of us walking around suppressing emotions and broken, and we don't recognize it. And then we get into relationships and create children who then we require to suppress their emotions about how they feel about their fathers. These patterns are very real. And I have to tell a lot of people that I coach, and even some of the Facebook Lives that I do, I tell people, we don't create cycles, we repeat them. And we're repeating cycles that we're not even aware of sometimes because maybe our parents, June, didn't tell us, right? There's a lot of family secrets that we don't talk about, and our mothers don't want to share those things, right? And our fathers don't want to say some of the bad stuff that they did. And so things are visiting us. As the scripture says, the sins of the fathers are visiting the children. And if you don't know that it's a visitation because no one told you, you may accept it. You may walk through that journey and you didn't have to. You didn't have to.
Do you have any stories to share, healing and transformation?
Yeah, I will share, it's out of 3,250. I think there's one that's very dear to my heart. There's a gentleman, Lenoris Dixon, military veteran. He actually lived in the Maryland area, and mom had moved to Georgia. And he wanted to be present in his son's life, so he got out of the military, retired, and moved to Georgia and was struggling. But there were things that were happening to keep him out of his son's life. But mom was a school teacher, and she looked very good in society. And he couldn't get access, but there were things happening where the police were being called and things like that. And we walked him through a process. What was taking him 2 years, it took us a year, and we were able to help fight for him so that he could get primary custody of his son because there were emotional things that she was having because she didn't grow up with her father. So she was having mental health challenges, even though she looked awesome on paper, right? And she was having mental health challenges that then came out during the court hearing that gave him full rights to his son. He had primary custody, and now At one point, he had moved to Florida, and now he's moved back to Georgia to ensure that they have a successful co-parenting experience. He said, I didn't want to live far away from her because I wanted to make it easier for her when it's time for her parenting time. How awesome can that be when two people can successfully co-parent after having a rift in their lives? And now the dad is able to facilitate a healthy relationship in the opposite direction. And I don't think we think about that when it comes to dads. We think, dads are not nurturers, and dads, they can't facilitate that. He's done an amazing job at facilitating. His son has a great relationship with her mother, and those are the kind of stories I get to live for. Those are the kind of stories I get to share with other people and let them know dads want to be present. What we hear about even black fathers, it's not true. They're behind the scenes fighting. They run out of money sometimes, and money is what required, like you've got to go to court, and it's required. But their heart is for their children. They want to be present the best way they know how, and we have to give them the tools to do so.
So if someone doesn't have money, what are the options for them?
Well, I would not suggest legal aid. Our organization helps fathers who don't have money. We get them pro bono attorneys, and I have attorneys who, some of the best in the country. I have a gentleman right now, I know his attorney. She makes $450 an hour, and she's doing this thing totally for free. She does 2 a year for us for free, and when I tell you free, it's free. And that's how we get it done. There's a fee that they have to pay into so that we can give the attorneys a gift. We can pay the therapists who do the work. And we've had private eyes on our team to help locate moms when dads don't know where they are. Those are the things that they pay into. But dads don't have the money, and so we offer an opportunity for dads who are have low income to have that time with their children and get that work done. Where they have paperwork in hand and they can solidify their relationship with their children.
Wow. Well, it sounds like very important work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming here to talk to me.
Thank you, June. I appreciate it.